Hey, it's Tom from Texas, and it's time for another floppy deep dive. And today we're going to be doing another in the episode of Commodore versus Atari. Yep, I love both of these systems. Grew up on the Commodore, the Atari. I love checking out some of these games for the first time. And now I'm comparing the systems side by side. So if you came to my house and played the game on my Commodore, and then I went to your house and played it on the Atari 800XL, what was the experience like? Were the graphics the same? Were the graphics different? How was the sound? How was the gameplay? I thought it was just great adventure to be able to do both of those. And I know there's a lot of people who are passionate about these systems. After 40 years, they still either in the Commodore camp, the Atari camp. So whatever you choose, that's fine. I'm just showing you directly from these machines. I'll only use original equipment, playing the games, and then capturing them and saving them side by side so you guys could check it out. Also, I told y'all we'll be doing the drawing for a free t-shirt, and I had a lot of people email in and tell me they want their free floppy deep dive t-shirt. We're going to be doing the drawing at the end of this video, so stick around till the end and watch while I do the drawing out of there and see if you won a floppy deep dive t-shirt. Also want to do a shout out to my patrons, Tony and John. Thank you guys so much for always supporting me over these years. I really do appreciate it. So let's go ahead and get this video started. Let's check out these games and start with the letter F for the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800XL. Boom!
Hey guys, let's kick things off with Frogger, focusing on Sierra Online version for both the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800XL. And starting with the Commodore 64, you gotta appreciate how the cars are rendered. There's just something about the design that stands out, that making that road crossing challenge visually appealing. But switching over to the Atari, though, the top part of the screen really catches the eye. The turtles and frogs look fantastic, especially when they jump into their slots. It's just these little details that enhance the overall game experience on the Atari. And talking gameplay, it's a tough call between the two systems. Both versions offer solid controls and equally compelling gameplay. It's really a push here. Both systems do a fantastic job of keeping you engaged with smooth and responsive mechanics. And now let's chat about the sound. Honestly, I think it's great on both systems. The iconic sounds that define Frogger's hoppy escapades are delivered well on both the Commodore 64 and the Atari, adding to the nostalgic thrill of the game. And if I had to pick one over the other, I'd lean just a bit towards the Atari version. Sorry, Commodore guys. The visual enhancements, especially in the areas where you see the turtles and frogs, just tips the scales for me. There's something about how it all comes together on the Atari that edges out the Commodore, at least in my book. You guys let me know what you think in the comments, and let's move on to the next one. Switching from frogs to fighter jets, let's soar into F-15 Strike Eagle. This one's a nail-biter, folks, because when you compare the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800XL version, it's incredibly close across the board. Graphics, gameplay, and sound are nearly identical, showcasing just how well this game was translated across platforms. And it was developed by Microprose in 1985. F-15 Strike Eagle was crafted by none other than Sid Meier and Andy Hollis, two legends in the gaming world. And the game doesn't just simulate flight. It immerses you in the detailed, real-world missions that are based on actual military engagements, like conflicts in Vietnam and in the Middle East. And this isn't just about flying, it's about experiencing a piece of history. And one of the game's standout features on both platforms is its realism. The developers went to great lengths to accurately model the F-15's capabilities, incorporating elements like fuel management, weapon systems, and tactical navigation that were groundbreaking at the time. And this level of detail won F-15 Strike Eagle numerous awards and helped cement its place as a pioneer in flight simulation gaming. The game was a commercial success, selling over 1.5 million copies and spawning several sequels. Its influence extended beyond just entertainment. It sparked interest in both aviation and simulation games, inspiring a whole generation of gamers and developers. And whether you're engaging enemy fighters over the dense forests of Vietnam or dodging surface-to-air missiles in the deserts of the Middle East, the experience on both the Commodore 64 and the Atari is exceptional. The precision and control and the depth of gameplay mean that every mission feels as intense and rewarding as the last. So while it's tough to choose between the two, the real winner here is anyone who gets to experience this landmark game. F-15 Strike Eagle isn't just a game, it's a journey into a cockpit of one of the most advanced fighters of its time, brought to life on your classic home computer. And so while it's tough to choose between the two, I really want to know, what do you think? Which version do you prefer? Commodore 64 or the Atari 800XL? Next up, we're diving to the eerie depths of Forbidden Forest, released in 1983 by Cosmi Corporation in the creative mind of Paul Norman. This isn't just another shooter, it's a pioneering horror game that utilized groundbreaking parallax scrolling to create an immersive 3D effect, setting a precedent in gaming visuals. Now, Paul Norman designed the game inspired by his own fears and fusing it with unique psychological depth that resonates through its spooky and foreboding atmosphere. On the Commodore 64, the game shines with its moody graphics, and its haunting audio experience is crafted by Norman himself, designed to increase in intensity, heighten the fear factor as you progress. While the Atari version holds its own with similar themes, the Commodore 64 version, with its smoother controls and superior sound quality, clearly takes the lead. Forbidden Forest not only became a cult classic for its innovative gameplay, but also for how it could genuinely spook players, a testament to its creator's vision. So I'd say the victory in this haunting realms of Forbidden Forest definitely goes to the Commodore 64. What are your thoughts? Does the Atari version hold a special place in your heart, or do you lean towards the Commodore 64? Share your views in the comments below. Now let's move on to the next game. Next, we're taking a thrill dive into Fort Apocalypse, a game that holds a special place in my heart as one of the first games I ever played on my Commodore 64. There's just something about navigating that helicopter through the treacherous underground maze that grabbed me as a kid and never let go. Graphically, the game presents a tough comparison between the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800XL. Both versions similar visuals with a slight twist. While the graphics themselves are nearly identical in terms of quality, the Atari version features noticeably larger bullets, which might give it a different feel, especially during those intense firefights. Sound-wise, it's a push for me, but both systems handle the audio well, with each version bringing those tense moments to life as you dodge and weave through the enemy lair. Gameplay is where things get interesting. I personally found the Commodore 64 version to be tougher, possibly due to the smaller size of the bullets, which require even more precision. Despite the increased challenge, or maybe because of it, the Commodore 64 version of Fort Apocalypse remains one of my top 5 helicopter games on the platform. It tests your skills to the max, but rewards you with the unbeatable feeling of accomplishment. So while both platforms offer a fantastic experience, I'd lean slightly towards the Commodore 64 version for its nostalgic value and the sheer challenge it presents. What about you? Which version of Fort Apocalypse do you prefer? Hit up the comments and let's discuss your picks and why they stand out. Now let's move on to the next game. Up next, let's leap into Frogger 2 ThreeeDeep, a sequel that takes our amphibious friend to a new heights and depths. This game expands the original challenge by not only having Frogger dodge traffic, but also by navigating water currents and even taking to the skies. Graphically, I gotta hand it to the Commodore 64 version. The details on Frogger himself are just superb, more refined and visually pleasing than what you see on the Atari. The colors pop a bit more and the overall visual presentation is just a top notch, making the game's environment feel more lively and immersive. However, I do appreciate Atari's version display of text of the scores and the levels at the top and bottom of the screen. It's cleaner and more appealing than the Commodore 64's somewhat generic text presentation. When it comes to sound, it's a tie. Both systems deliver audio that complements the gameplay beautifully, enhancing the overall experience without overshadowing the action. The hop sounds, the splash as Frogger dives into the water, and the triumphant tune when reaching safety, it all feels just right, whether you're playing the Commodore or the Atari. And gameplay-wise, both versions are stellar. The controls are responsive, making each jump precise and satisfying. It doesn't matter if you're guiding Frogger through busy roads, across choppy waters, or up into the bird-filled skies. Both the Commodore 64 and Atari handles these challenges with flawless execution. And despite the Atari's sleeker score display, my vote goes towards the Commodore 64 for Frogger 2, primarily because of the superior graphic details and the overall aesthetic appeal. It just gives Frogger that extra bit of character that makes the game even more enjoyable. What's your take? Do the looks win you over, or is there another aspect of Frogger 2 that stands out more for you on either system? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Love to hear which version you prefer and why. Now, let's move on to the next game. Stepping into the ring now, we have Fight Night, a game that throws punches in the world of sports simulation. I remember getting this one for my birthday as a kid, and boy, the anticipation was through the roof, especially with what I saw on the screen. Graphically, the Commodore 64 version of Fight Night stands out with cleaner, more detailed visuals. It seems like a lot more effort went into programming on the Commodore 64. Each boxer's movement and interaction in the ring has a polished look that really enhances the overall experience. Sound-wise, the Commodore 64 also takes the lead. The impact of the big hits is just better. They have a unique effect that resonates and almost vibrates through you, which isn't quite replicated on the Atari. This added oomph in the sound department really adds to the immersion, making each punch feel significant. In gameplay, it's a different story. On both systems, I found Fight Night to become redundant and too easy over time. The strategy of just moving up and down with the hits to the face or to the gut just didn't hold a challenge. I hoped for more, which kind of let me down after the initial excitement of getting the game. Despite the gameplay falling a bit short of expectations, if I had to pick a winner, it's the Commodore 64 for me. The superior graphics and sounds just makes it more enjoyable experience overall, even if the challenge doesn't always keep up. So what did you think? Did Fight Night manage to keep you on your toes, or did you find it a bit too straightforward as well? Which version do you think is better? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's move on to the next. Let's bounce into Flip and Flop, a charming game where you guide either Flip the Kangaroo or Flop the Monkey across a series of ever-challenging platforms. It's a fun mix of puzzle solving and quick reflex actions that has entertained players on both the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800XL. And when it comes to graphics, it's a real tough to call a winner. Both versions of the game look very similar, and each platform rendered a colorful, dynamic levels with the same level of charm and vibrancy. Whether you're hopping around as Flip or Flop, the visual appeal is consistent across both systems. The sound, however, is where I start to notice a difference. On the Commodore 64, the audio is just cleaner and more vibrant, enhancing the gameplay with lively effects that keep you engaged. The Atari version, while still good, tends to sound a bit muted in comparison, which doesn't quite deliver the same energetic atmosphere. Gameplays wise, it's identical on both systems, each offering a smooth and enjoyable experience as you navigate through the puzzles and challenges. The controls are responsive, making it easy to jump right into the action without any learning curve. And overall, while both versions hold up well, I give the slight edge to the Commodore 64 primarily because of its better sound quality, but just a little bit. That little bit of extra clarity in the audio really makes the game environment just more immersive for me. But what's your take? Do you prefer the vibrant sound of the Commodore 64, or does another aspect of the game stand out for you more on the Atari? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's move on to the next game. Now let's swing over to Floyd of the Jungle, an early gem from the legendary game designer Sid Meier. This fun and chaotic multiplayer game pits players against each other in a jungle-themed obstacle course, and it showcases some of Sid Meier's earliest game development work, setting the stage for his illustrious career. And graphically, the Atari 800XL version of Floyd of the Jungle really stands out to me. The black background used in this version contrasts sharply with the more vibrant vibrant sprites, making everything pop more dramatically compared to the Commodore 64's white background, which can feel a bit stark. And this choice enhances the jungle feel, adding depth and a sense of danger lurking in the dark corners of the screen. And the sound of the Atari also gets my vote. It's richer and more engaging, enhancing the overall gameplay experience by bringing the jungle more to life with a more immersive and dynamic audio cues. Gameplay on the Atari is also another strong point. You can play against 4 players, which ups the ante compared to the 3 on the Commodore 64. The game feels smoother and offers more of a challenge, making it not only more competitive, but also more fun as you dodge through the treacherous jungle obstacles. And overall, the Atari 800XL version of Floyd of the Jungle takes the crown for me. It just delivers a more polished and exciting experience, making the most of the graphical and sound capabilities to immerse you fully into this wild competitive gameplay. So do you agree with my pick, or do you have a different favorite? How does Floyd of the Jungle stack up against the other early multiplayer games? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Well, that's it, guys. That's the whole kit and caboodle, the Commodore 64 and the Atari 800XL. Now it's your turn. You go down in the comments, you tell me which game was better on the Commodore, which game was better on the Atari, or was it the same, or you couldn't tell the difference. I want to know what you think. So go ahead, go down in the comments and put it in there. If you haven't subscribed yet and you love this kind of content, go ahead, go out there and subscribe, hit the like button. I appreciate the support. So now let's go ahead and move on to the drawing and see who won the new Floppy Deep Dive t-shirt. Congratulations to Tom for winning it. I'll be reaching out to you by email to get your information, and I'll be shipping your new t-shirt here shortly. If you haven't checked out the other videos where I'm comparing the Atari and Commodore 64, go check out those too. I've got A through E that's already out there. Look at those videos next. Boom. Well, that's it, guys. That's the whole... What's that thing? Well, that's it, guys. That's the whole kit and caboodle,